Hello and welcome to Three Chairs. My name is Josh. Let's have a look and see who is joining me in the yellow chair. Hello, Blessed. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good to see you. And who is in the red chair? It's none other than Jason. How you doing, my friend?
Mate. Good.
How is life treating you at the moment?
Pretty well, although I'm currently pastoring a homeless church.
A homeless...
Yeah, not a church for homeless people, but
Right.
the church itself is actually homeless.
Oh, the church itself is in
doesn't
need
have a home.
of
that's
I
right.
see,
Yeah,
right.
the gathering of people, we need a home.
Of course, homeless
Yeah.
people are welcome at the church
Yeah,
as well.
of course they are.
Very good. Well, of course, Blessed, the question I now have for you, do you think that you can potentially give Jason's church a home?
Well,
Good question.
my father's the pastor of my church, so I'd have to actually go and ask him for permission
He's
first.
the man in charge.
Yeah, but I live out in South Auckland, so surely we can try and find something somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I grew up in South Auckland. It's changed a little bit recently, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
There's lots going on. But yeah, I'm sure we can find a home for
Yes.
Jason and the crew.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, I recently moved out of home because I thought it was probably time to stop mooching off my father being 25 years old.
So you grew up.
I grew up, yeah, and I got out.
Yeah.
It's good.
You got out. You got out. Good on you.
Today on Three Chairs, we are talking about the youth exodus. Gentlemen, we're here at the white table to get to know each other a little bit better. So I think we'll put you on the spot first, Jason. Let's ask some questions.
Okay, all right.
See how deep they
There
are.
we go.
Hopefully very deep. I'm ready.
This is a super deep question.
All right.
You ready for this? When did you last get embarrassed?
Oh, gosh. This question has specifically been put in this basket for me because
Okay.
I preemptively, accidentally told our director that I had an embarrassing story, and so now I'm going to have
there
to
you
tell
go.
it on
Okay.
camera for
Yeah,
everybody.
excellent.
I was recently at an event, and I'm a single man, and so, looking for love, right?
How's a good-looking man like you so simple?
Look,
That's a good question.
Through the process
make
of
sense.
this, you will find out why. But I'm like, okay, here's an opportunity, right? So I sit down and I'm talking to this wonderful lady. She's beautiful, she's smart, she's intelligent. We're having a great conversation. But before I approached, I had noted she's sitting next to a gentleman. Immediately, though, I know, not her partner. I've done the body
You
language
just
thing.
knew it,
I've
yeah,
done the,
yeah.
I've sussed it out. No, they're not together. He's also a little bit older.
Okay.
What I did happen to figure out later, though, in the process of conversation, was that was her father and
okay.
flirting with a man's daughter, like, right in front of her. Just like gone, drained, like this is, and it was, okay, I'm gonna go chat with somebody else,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes, so I don't know if either of you could top that embarrassing story.
Wow.
No, I don't think I've misanalyzed the situation like that as bad as you have, but that definitely takes the cut, man.
There you go. Okay, well, we'll just go with one embarrassing story then.
Yeah.
Cool, and I'll ask the next question. Okay, gentlemen, do you have any secret skills or talents that nobody knows about? And be warned, you will have to show us.
Oh, no.
What are you thinking, Jason? Come on.
Secret skill. Well, there's a lot of things that I did as a kid that I haven't done for a long time.
Yes.
Like playing the trumpet. Like, a lot of people don't know that I play the trumpet.
You're a trumpet kid? Yeah.
But I haven't played in like 20 years.
Well, the good thing is we have a trumpet here now. No, I'm joking. Blow your own trumpet about playing the
that's
trumpet.
right.
I like
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
Any secret skills, Blessed?
I have a secret skill. In fact, when I was a child, and I would particularly choose this one because I cannot do it here, but I did ice skating lessons.
Wow.
That's
You
awesome.
never see a Samoan
On the
you will
ice.
never see a Samoan on the ice, and it's a scene that it just looks so transcendent. But as soon as I hit the ice, I was so good until I fell over.
Yeah.
But that's a secret skill I thought I had when I was a child.
So you thought you had.
Yeah.
Good.
I stopped after that.
You
so-
stopped after that.
Yeah.
After the first bail, you're like, no,
Yeah.
this is not for me.
Yeah.
Good.
Your turn.
Okay, let's go for it. Ooh, if you could live in any sitcom, which one would it be?
Friends. Done.
I don't know though, because
Why Friends though?
It's my sitcom growing up. It's what
Yeah.
I watched every day, like 10 years, 10 seasons. It started when I was intermediate school, finished when I was in uni, and yeah.
I'm not judging you at all,
Yeah.
but okay, that's awesome.
well, see, here's the thing though, because I mean, I grew
feel
up with
the
Friends as
non-judgment.
well.
It's great, yeah.
But I've come to realise that the friends in Friends are just terrible
They're
people.
terrible
They're
friends.
terrible
Yeah,
people.
that's right.
And like you wouldn't want to be friends with them. Like they're just not nice to each other.
That's the
They're
bad
also
words.
a bit narcissistic. It's just, but we love the show.
Yeah,
So
that's
potentially, I mean, if I get paid $1 million an episode, I think I'd like to be in Friends.
Yeah,
But that's me.
So when I was a youth leader, I created a character called Dangerous Dave. And he was a very incompetent archaeologist who found a time machine that would look like a cardboard box. And he ended up accidentally traveling back through time, messing up Bible stories. For example, he went to see David versus Goliath, greatest matchup of all time. And what happened? He ended up killing David before the match. So he had to take David's place and fight Goliath. Just a great show.
Despite the youth exodus being a rather clickbaity title, it is something that is real and a part of church. And I think for the three of us who have all worked in a church setting with youth, it's something we've identified that at the end of high school, the attendance of youth drastically dips. And it's been studied by the Fuller Youth Institute in the States. And it's a real problem, but why do you think, Jason, that youth are struggling to integrate into, for want of a better word, or for better words, I should say, a big church?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting that you use the term big church, isn't it? Because that's kind of how we see it. Like, it's almost like there's this youth entity and they're separate from the church and they do their own thing. And then there's big church. That's what they, you turn 18, you graduate to big church, and now it's
I'm a big kid now.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
But I'm still, I guess that's maybe it. Like I say, I'm a big kid, but I still feel very much like a kid. I don't belong in that.
It's a very
entity.
alien, foreign environment because it is so different from what you've done in youth growing up, even from kids' church,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you had any similar experiences, Blessed, being involved with youth?
Yeah. I think for me, like sometimes as a leader, when you read a statement like that, you immediately default to what's wrong with the church and what's the problem in the church. When really there's so many contributing factors to why youth drop out at that age.
Yeah. Yes.
And like in terms of like a life spectrum, like these are really life-changing scenarios and situations in which youth, dealing with young kids, high schoolers going into young adult or adulthood or child going into adulthood. Yesterday I'm making egg sandwiches or ham sandwiches, or if you're like Josh, you had lunch money for school. Yesterday I had lunch money for school, and tomorrow I've got to consider a five-figure student loan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yesterday,
Yeah.
Mr. Hendricks is asking what's your favourite subject at school, and tomorrow they're asking you, what do you want to do with your life?
What's your career going to be?
And these are huge
change.
life-altering scenarios and situations young people are faced with. And then on top of all the social pressures and everything, am I still going to church?
Yeah.
And that's a question they're all faced with.
Yeah.
Does it come maybe, it's like, it's less of a priority because of you're such at a formative age that your priority list is just immediately going to change. And church, if it's not servicing you in a way that is maybe feeding potentially those answers or informing those answers, then maybe it doesn't become as much of a priority anymore. Maybe I say, well, what really is the point in going to church anymore?
Yeah, I think it partly becomes a lesser priority as well. Like you say, you've got student loan, you've got jobs, you've got part-time job, you've got uni, you've got all this stuff going on, and you just get busy and it just gets pushed out. But then as well, you're right, I get most of my input from my friends, so I can hang out with them. I don't have to go to church to hang out with them. Do I really need to do this church thing, Because again, I think it's maybe a formative thing. They've been formed to expect church to be, or Jesus, or gathering and learning about Jesus to be a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think, because I wonder if we kind of pigeonhole my involvement with church is for my spiritual development, but is it really going to inform any other decisions that I make in my life? And maybe suddenly that mentality shifts to being like, well, actually, it's only part of my spiritual development, and then it's like, well, it's only a Sunday thing. But actually, I think we would all potentially agree that our faith should inform every decision we make in life, regardless of its size, whether it's a big thing, a small thing. I think, potentially I'd like to think that the decision I make in my career, whether it's in a Christian setting or not, still is glorifying God. But I guess that's kind of difficult to do for everybody.
Yeah,
surely.
I mean, like, we were talking, Jason, earlier about the big church and the small church, and I think one of the things of age-segregated ministries, going from kids ministry to now youth ministry, and then now I've got to be in the big bad world as an adult, and so we kind of youth church almost becomes a church within the church.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we've
yeah.
almost kind of become in this bubble, and we've been in it for 5-6 years, and we've been so cultivated into being part of this circle, and now we're being released into the open, and so it's totally understandable to see so many youth just fall between, a wide crack, not
It
just small
is
cracks, but wide ones.
Yes, because there's a book I've read called Sticky Faith. It's by a lady called Cara Powell, and it's all about making faith stick, particularly for young people. And one of the things that was identified was that youth church and big church, as I like that we're classifying it, they almost are opposite in their identity. Youth church says if big church is slow and old and stuffy, we're going to be young and vibrant and cool. If they sit down, we'll stand up. If they go left, we'll go right. And what happens is suddenly, like you said, they have two separate identities. They're two separate entities, and this divide that they have to jump from youth church to big church is no longer just this big, but it's completely, when I walk into big church, it's not what I think church is.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, and it's hard because you've set up your expectation of your identity against something as the anti-something that then you're being asked to join. Like now, to join the establishment,
Anti-establishment,
Yeah, that's right.
Re-register.
That's right, yeah. So,
I'm one of the people.
That's right. And so that is a massive barrier to overcome when you're like, we don't want to be like these people. They're old, they're stuffy, they're not cool, they don't get the floss or whatever it is these days,
I feel like I should stand up and floss right now, but I'm definitely
like a
not
hashtag
going to
thing,
do
or
that.
we go in different areas?
Yeah.
But and now I have to be part of this. I have to sit next to them and I have to do church with them. It's such a hard thing to overcome.
So is the problem with then that church is old and stuffy? Because I don't think that's the case.
No.
I think that's the perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
I now, as a young adult, having had to make that leap, understand that that was definitely more the perception than it was the reality. But why is that the perception? Why is that what we think it is?
Yeah, I think like in my experience, the perceptions like that is because we've become so separate. We've built this disconnect between the two.
Right.
And so we've been saying that our identity is kind of in here, in youth church, and then now we've got to sort of switch over to adult church. I mean, that's sort of been my experience in that. So yeah.
Because that's how we call it. We call it youth church and adult church, but we are one
Yeah,
church.
it's church. Yeah,
It's church.
That's right.
English is the only language where you can repeat the same word after that word,
Yeah.
and it makes more sense.
Yeah.
I'm going out
right.
to get milk. What kind of milk? Milk.
Milk. Yeah. That's right.
But so I think then, where does that perception, how do we shift it? Where do we begin to say, well, this isn't the reality, so what can we do for our young people to change that perception?
I remember my time as a youth leader, and when you go attend some of those really big youth events, and you get so inspired because it's just such a great event, a mass gathering, and the production is just awesome. So I thought it'd be a great idea as a student and youth leader that for the next Friday youth night, I would go and hire some lights and get some blinders, and I'd use part of my student living costs to hire these lights. And we put everything together for our youth night, even though only 18 were going to turn up. And our youth pastor at the time had cancelled the night for a prayer meeting. And I just, recall right now, I realize I'll just call you bro, because I don't want to say your name. I just want to say, bro, I finally forgive you.
Okay, gentlemen, so we've got one episode of Three Chairs to solve this crisis going on in the church. I don't know if we'll be able to do it in
Big ask.
in one
that's
episode,
a mission
but
and a half.
I think maybe we can take steps towards solutions. And I don't know, what do we think about... I know that in some churches I've been a part of, that it seems that the initial answer is, okay, so there's a gap between youth and big church, as we're describing it. So we need to bridge that divide. We'll put a group in the middle. So you go, okay, well, you can leapfrog from that to that gap, then to that gap.
Yeah.
I see pros and cons of that. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I think you're kind of putting a Band-Aid on a really big wound.
Right, yeah.
Kind of going, it's going to be another group that they're going to identify with, and then they're going to have this similar struggle again.
It's just delaying the inevitable.
It is, yeah, delaying
Right,
the inevitable. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think actually you need to go back further in their life than that and start an intergenerational process. Much further back. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's very interesting you say that, because so in the book I referenced earlier, Sticky Faith, one thing they talk about is that usually in youth culture, when we talk about church, it's a 1-to-5 ratio. 1 adult to 5 youth members. And so 1 adult actively involved in their lives. Whereas they say that the flip of that is actually it should be 5 adults all pouring into one youth member's life, which is drastically, that's a complete reversal. But that's 5 adults that are on that kid's side, that are there showing up at sports games, that are there when they get awards, are there for the small things and for the big things. And for some kids, you know, that can include mum and dad, but so many families these days, it's just mum or it's just dad, and you need 4 other adults who are going to do that. And I don't know, have you experienced anything like that before, Blessed? Maybe we've had youth that just kind of needed somebody to be real with them?
Yeah, I mean, I love the language around intergenerational. It's a tongue twister. That
I got him to say it because I couldn't say it.
Intergenerational. and integrating, I think the gap is really how do we integrate youth into the life of the church. And I remember in Bible college, I did a pastoral care essay, and there was a quote. I totally forgot who wrote it. I was going to coin it myself, but I'm Christian here, so I'll be honest. There was a quote I remember, and it was the author had said, you know, young people and adolescents have a strong desire to belong and to be involved in something. And so we build in youth culture a strong involvement culture. You know, everything that we do in youth, come be a part of this, join us. You know, this movement, we're doing this, and that. And so they all flood
flashbacks.
in.
Flashbacks.
Right. You know, all the posters that we had in youth ministry. And so they all flood in, and then by the time, you know, there's nothing really to integrate them to be involved in the life of the church. And when I think in my church context specifically, you know, a lot of the youth that stayed between that gap between youth and young adults were one of 2 things. One, their families were involved in church for a long time, and they've been part of it. And I think both of our journeys are quite testament of that.
Yes,
we're both in our churches really because, you know, we've been there since, you know, for a long.
Pastors' kids,
part of the furniture. You know, and secondly, they're involved. And so, you know, we've got the young adults that are still in our church from youth, those that are either involved in youth ministry, creative arts, hospitality. You know, they're involved in something to do with the life of the church. And I think that's, I guess, one of the greater integrative solutions that we can think of is how can we get young people involved in and get that support network around them to continue that journey.
That's great, because young people have a real kind of desire to get involved and to be part of something that's more and has meaning beyond themselves, and kind of an activist almost mindset where they want to be involved and do stuff. And I remember one church that I was involved in, our biggest volunteer base was like our young adults. And when they would all go home for their mostly out-of-towners that came up for uni, when they would all go home during the uni holidays, we were like, who's going to do all the stuff, you know? Like,
who's going to run the PowerPoint?
That's right. No one knows the technology.
That's what, you know, we talked about that the other day. The whole church does this thing and they look back.
And you get the look, man, honestly.
The sound guy gets the look.
Exactly.
The drums are too loud.
The drums are too loud.
Where are we without the youth? I don't know what I'm doing.
That's right. And so getting them involved, I think, is really key, and as young as they can. And because kids these days are, like my daughter is 7 and she's got an iPad in school and she's learning to use it. So I'm like, do the PowerPoint, you know? Like, you know how to click the buttons and everything, you know? So we've got a young boy in our church, he's 12, and he does PowerPoint for us, and he's amazing. He's just like troubleshooting, problem solving, and he feels like he's part of something bigger in the congregation, you know. So, yeah. And it is, like you say, it's not big church, it's integrating them into the life of the church, you know.
Church.
So, yeah, exactly. And it's us having that mindset as well, that actually they're part of our church too.
Because one thing I did, and I'm not going to claim that this was some genius idea I thought of, I definitely was like, oh, that's a good idea, and took it from somewhere. Being honest now, though, because I'm a good Christian boy. So one term for youth when I was leading, instead of having the Bible study each week, what we did is instead I invited a member from the congregation to come down, and they were interviewed. And yeah, they shared their testimony, and that's really powerful. But what they also just shared was their everyday life and their real experiences. One lady shared her experience of meeting her now husband and, what happened with that. They came from 2 different cultures, and so it was a little bit of, give and take, and the families didn't always see eye to eye. And that really connected with a lot of the young girls who were, stepping into that part of their life. And then we had another man come down who all they know him as is the principal at one of the local primary schools. But he's also an amazing drummer in our worship band. He also was a part of the military, and the boys were like, oh, wow, this guy is amazing. And so now, when they go to, as we classify it, big church, and I'm going to stop doing that now, because I think we've agreed that we shouldn't call it big church anymore. But now when they go to church, they know that person. They know Andy, and they know Rachel, and they know, and they can say hi, and they can talk, and those adults, like said before, they can be on their side. And I think, we're trying to look for a silver bullet. We're trying to look for that one answer. But actually,
there's no such thing.
There's no such thing.
No way, man.
No way. But it's about
Continuum.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
I like the idea of it's silver shavings, right? It's little things, and it's about nuance. It's about case by case, being intimately involved with those youth members, how they like to be involved. Are they sporty? Are they creative? Are they, a massive reader? Do they like to talk a lot? Not saying, all right, now we're not talking anymore. Encourage that conversation that's going on between those. No,
good.
I must admit, I'm very glad that Jason made the point about intergenerational relationships, not only because it's a good point, but also because I struggle to say it. Amen. Thanks, guys.
Sorry. That's what men do all the time.
That's right, we pray. We're
Yes,
together.
right,
Absolutely. But have you enjoyed your time on 3 Cheers Blessed?
Absolutely loved it, just having the corridor around the issues that youth ministries face and youth pastors and leaders also, so it's great.
Absolutely. Jason, do you think we have solved the problem? 1 3 Cheers episode, we've knocked it out of the park?
Absolutely. I say bring on the next one.
I know. I think we're a good team.
Totally.
All right, next topic. What can we solve? World hunger?
I'm definitely not suffering from world hunger, so you're good.
And thank you for joining us on 3 Cheers.